Greetings, football fans. Jesse Kurtz and Ted Sundquist here to break down Week 5 of the Mountain West football season, where a handful of Mountain West teams will be playing conference games for the first time in 2014. Before we get into the games, let's get you caught up on the standings in the Mountain West. Not a whole lot has changed as far as conference play goes from last week. Boise State and Wyoming still 1-0 in conference play. Utah State and New Mexico are at 0-0. 2-2 for Utah State, New Mexico at 1-2. Air Force and Colorado State both winless in conference play, but are 2-1 overall. In the West Division, Nevada at 2-1, San Diego State and San Jose State 1-2, Hawaii and Fresno State and UNLV all 1-3. Nobody in the West to date has played a conference game. That will change here in Week 5. We're going to start with a Friday night game. Fresno State going down to Albuquerque to play the Lobos. Friday night, 6 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN2. Fresno State coming off that beatdown of Southern Utah 56-16. Fresno State got the ground game going here in 2014, ran for 392 yards, the most since 2004 for a Fresno State team. Martez Waller led the way with 117 yards. Do the Bulldogs need to continue to run the ball like they did last Saturday against Southern Utah to be effective here going forward?
Yeah, Jesse, I've been saying all through this first brutal month of the Bulldogs' schedule against the likes of USC, Utah, and Nebraska that Tim DeRuyter and his offensive staff needed to reestablish that rushing attack. But that's easier said than done sometimes, to just change your entire offensive philosophy. DeRuyter's offensive staff has kept at it, averaging over 33 carries in those first 3 weeks of this young season. Certainly against Southern Utah, they found the going a bit easier. They kept the pedal to the metal with 54 carries. They averaged 7.2 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. You mentioned Martez Waller's performance, but Josh Quezada is starting to get back into swing of things. He added 84 yards on 12 carries for the Bulldogs. And remember, it was Quezada that led the Fresno State rushing attack last season with 821 yards, and he tallied 6 touchdowns. The Lobos are last in the Mountain West in rushing defense, and the Bulldogs also face UNLV in 2 weeks, currently ranked 11th and surrendering 305 yards a game.
The Lobos feeling pretty good about themselves, coming off a thrilling win over their in-state rival New Mexico State, 38-35. The man who's leading the way defensively, Dakota Cox, just a sophomore, leads the Mountain West with 15 tackles per game. That ranks 4th nationally. How impressive is it for a guy who's coming off a big season as a freshman, but have a guy as a sophomore take the lead, as a captain no less, take the lead on defense, and then produce like Dakota Cox is right now?
Well, I got a chance to work the New Mexico versus UTEP game to open the season, and I got a chance to see Dakota Cox start his second season for the Lobos, like you said. Against the Miners, he tallied 17 stops and is coming off a week where he bettered that by 18 against arch rival New Mexico State. This guy's a dynamo for Bob Davies' defense. Cox really has become the heart and soul of this defense, trying to find an identity. And if they'd all play with Cox's tenacious effort, New Mexico might be a little bit stouter against their opponent's offensive attack. This guy shows up inside versus the power run game, but he can fly to the perimeter to make plays outside the hashes. He's already recorded an interception, broken up 2 passes in coverage, and forced a quarterback hurry. On top of that, he has 11 solos to supplement his 34 assists. If the Bulldogs do indeed look to establish the ground game against New Mexico, Dakota Cox will play a huge factor in whether or not the Lobos can pull off an upset in Albuquerque.
First of 4 straight Friday night games for Fresno State as they go down to New Mexico to battle the Lobos. Conference opener for both teams Friday, 6 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN2. Let's go outside of conference play. Wyoming at Michigan State. Tough trip to East Lansing. Be a noon kickoff on ESPN2. Wyoming coming off a thrilling win over Florida Atlantic, a last-minute win 20-19. Dominic Ruffron came up with the big play that set up what was the game-winning field goal. Wyoming is committed to the run. Craig Bohl has made that a priority from day one. But when they need a big play, they've gone to Dominic Ruffron time and time again in his career. But certainly this year they did it against Air Force, and they did it against Florida Atlantic.
At 6 foot, 188 pounds, the Colorado Springs native plays much bigger than that on the field. Ruffron's 17 receptions have averaged over 17 yards per catch, and they rank him 5th in the Mountain West. But really, he's 2nd amongst receivers with 15 or more receptions on the season. Breaking it down, 12 of his 17 receptions have gone for first downs, with 5 of 15 or more yards and 3 of another 25 plus. What we're seeing is Dominic becoming one of quarterback Colby Kierkegaard's favorite targets on first down, with most opponent defenses cheating up for the run where the Cowboys are second in attempts in the Mountain West on first down with 83. Roofran has proven to be the changeup Craig Bowles' offense is needed to create the big play through the air early in a series. Michigan State is last in the Big Ten in quarterback rating on first down, but third in average per rush. Look for the Cowboys to try to catch the Spartans cheating up a bit by attacking with Dominic Roofran downfield.
41 consecutive games with a reception right now for Dominic Roofran. That's second in the country, second only to Matt Miller of Boise State. Wyoming and Michigan State will kick things off in East Lansing, noon Eastern time on ESPN2. Sticking with a Mountain Division team that is outside of conference play, Colorado State paying a visit to Boston College, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on the ACC network. Will also be broadcast on Root Sports in the Rocky Mountain footprint. CSU 2-1. They were idle last week. Last time they were on the field, they beat UC Davis 49-21. Garrett Grayson leads the Mountain West in throwing for an average of 331 yards per game. That ranks 10th nationally. Does Garrett Grayson have the skills that project to the next level, because he's a guy that's gone to passing camps and all of a sudden starting to get some traction with some pro scouts?
Well, at 6'2" and 220 pounds, he certainly has the stature to hang in the pocket at the next level. And in an era where most college quarterbacks are coming from a dual threat offense, that is a run-pass option, Grayson isn't going to be the guy to threaten you downfield with his running ability. But I think Garrett is the type of quarterback that can manage a game, and really that's the most important value in the next level QB. Some of the best NFL signal callers aren't the ones with the strongest arm or the fastest legs, but the ones that understand the situation and can make the plays when their teams need it most. CSU's quarterback has more completion, a higher completion percentage, more touchdowns, and is the highest quarterback rating in the fourth quarter when the game is on the line. He's also passing at his best on third down, 64.3%, well over 10% higher from 2013. This is the single most significant improvement to his game, and one that the NFL scouts are sure to take notice of.
Jim McElwain said he was the most improved passer last year throughout the season. Certainly has picked up where he left off from last year here in 2014. Second ever meeting between the Rams and Eagles. If you remember the last time they met, 2003 in the San Francisco Bowl. They'll do it again. Colorado State and Boston College will, 12:30 Eastern time, ACC Network or Root Sports will have your TV coverage. Boise State at Air Force getting inside Mountain West play. 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Boise State coming off that win over Louisiana, 34-9. They're now 3-1 on the season. Air Force idle last week. They are 2-1. 0-1 in the Mountain West. They were idle as well last week. Beat Georgia State in Atlanta last time on the field, 48-38. Let's start with Boise State. Boy, they have a big play defense right now. Very opportunistic. Caused 10 turnovers already in the season, 8 of which have been interceptions. What are they doing to opposing offenses that are creating these turnovers early in the season?
Jesse, they focus on creating upfield pressure. The Broncos lead the Mountain West with 14 sacks, and they're second only to Utah State in tackles for losses, trailing the Aggies by just 1 at 37. They also lead the league in rushing defense, and I think it's a byproduct of the emphasis of the surge they create up front. They've got a really nice mix of experience and some rising youth in the secondary, and these guys are very instinctive and aggressive when it comes to playing both the receiver and the ball. This is a unit that's willing to take some chances, and sometimes it's feast or famine. The Broncos have given up 10 plays of 15 or more and 2 plays of 25 or more through the air on third down. Only Fresno State's struggling pass defense has surrendered more, but Boise State also has 5 interceptions on third down and the lowest overall quarterback rating in the league. To me, that shows a staff that's committed and has enough confidence in its players to take some risk in crucial situations, and that tends to create big plays for your defense.
Turnovers, no doubt, will play a role in this game in Colorado Springs. The Air Force has done a good job taking care of the ball here in 2014. That thanks in large part to the play of Cale Pearson at quarterback, first full season starting for the Falcons. Went 12 of 15 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air against Georgia State. And oh, by the way, he scored a couple of touchdowns on the ground. How impressed have you been with Cale Pearson, who got hurt in the season opener in 2013, missed the entire year, picks up, and all of a sudden he's got this job and really is playing remarkably well?
Yeah, quite impressed, because in my opinion that was the single biggest factor that led to a disappointing season for the Falcons in 2013. We all know the story, as you mentioned, about Air Force's situation at the position, 4 different starters over 12 games for various reasons. Pearson was the one quarterback who had the least amount of play time after opening the season, like you said, as a starter, and got injured in week 1. I've come off a torn ACL myself on my left knee as a sophomore at Air Force, and it's not just the physical aspect of getting back to form, it's overcoming that mental side as well. And the most impressive thing, I think, is how he's handled that lingering mental doubt in the road to recovery as an athlete. There doesn't appear to be any, just none there with him. Like you stated, his all-around game, a must for any Air Force quarterback, has been outstanding thus far. He's throwing for 60% and might be higher if not for some untimely drops by his receivers. He's not the featured runner in this offense, but he's shown a tough and willing effectiveness when called on to do so, with 7 converted first downs, 2 touchdowns, and 3 runs of 10 yards or more. And just like in a predominant passing attack, an option quarterback must manage the game effectively for his team to have a chance. Cale has yet to throw an interception and leads the offense with only 2 turnovers on the season, tied for the league lead in the Mountain West.
Hopes to do something that none of the 4 quarterbacks could do last year, and that's win a Mountain West game. Falcons have yet to win a conference game since 2012. They'll go for that against Boise State in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy, 5 o'clock Mountain Time. How about UNLV and San Diego State? Conference opener for both teams, 5 o'clock Pacific Time, also on ESPN3. UNLV 1-3 on the season. They lost to Houston last week, 47-14. 1 catch for Devontae Davis in that loss against the Cougars. How does UNLV get its top playmaker more involved? Because I would think he's as key as anyone to their success here this season.
Exactly. Bobby Houck and his offensive staff must create some plays that single him up against San Diego State's coverage. This could be through some creative formations, perhaps stacking one side of the field, splitting out Devontae on the backside, or even moving him around through shifts in motion. A lot of teams employ the jet sweep to get their playmakers outside and on the edge in the open field. This is a big, strong receiver that averages over 15 yards of reception, and he's capable of breaking some tackles to create the extra yards. I think above all, you just have to go to him early. Get him in a rhythm with quarterback Blake Decker and build that confidence from the outset. The Rebels are 5th overall in the Mountain West in first half attempts, and 12 of Devontae's 17 receptions have come in the first 30 minutes of the ball game. To the Rebels' credit, they did try to get Davis the ball 4 times in the first half last week, and then Davis disappeared in the second half, and his lone reception came early in the third quarter.
Taking on a San Diego State team that's coming off a loss at Oregon State, 28-7. Quinn Kaler's streak of 14 straight games of at least 200 yards passing or more. That was snapped. That's the longest San Diego State for a quarterback since 1996, the 3rd longest streak in the nation. He's been very productive. How does he bounce back? Because Rocky Long told us at the start of this season that he was the key to turning around their season last year. How does he get back on track after a disappointing game against the Beavers?
Well, I think the best thing to do is get that Aztec passing attack back on track, is to reestablish the run game that was held to a season-low 109 yards. Last season, the Aztecs lost 4 of their 5 games when they weren't able to muster at least 4 yards a carry. Subsequently, I thought at times in those games it also affected their ability to get the ball downfield via the pass. Kaler also withstood some heavy pressure by the Oregon State defense that recorded 3 sacks and hurried the Aztec quarterback for most of the night. San Diego State's big play passing game will return with a steady dose of the run game and countering with play action against a Rebel defense that has struggled to stop their opponents on the ground. And they may have to resort to bringing an extra man down in the box to deal with Donald Pumphrey. This could open up some opportunities, I think, deep within the UNL defense. It's given up 9 plays of 25 or more yards. It's the most in the Mountain West Conference.
Rebels and Aztecs meeting for the 24th time. This, though, the earliest meeting between the two teams since 1982. Final game in the Mountain West this week, Nevada at San Jose State. Again, the conference opener for these two teams, 7:30 Pacific time, be televised by CBS Sports Network. Nevada idle last week, coming off that loss down in Tucson where they battled back against Arizona, ended up falling 35-28. Nevada is one of 10 teams in the nation to be 13 of 13 or better in the red zone on offense. 10 of those going for touchdowns. What's made them so successful in the red zone, the Wolfpack, this season?
Well, consistency, both in the run and the pass game. It starts with quarterback Cody Fajardo. Cody Fajardo's 13 of 17 inside the 20, and his rating is 200.56. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. At 6'5" and 220 pounds, sophomore wide receiver Hassan Henderson makes a great target. His 3 red zone receptions have gone for 2 first downs and a touchdown. And then at 6'1", 240-pound, sophomore tight end Jared Gibson has 2 catches, both for scores. The Wolfpack are also 4th in rushing attempts, 4th in total rushing yards, and 5th in yards per rushing attempt in the red zone. Fajardo, along with running backs Don Jackson and James Butler, both over 200 pounds, have been effective 1, 2, 3 punch in the Nevada scoring opportunities. This steady consistency, I think, has converted 12 first downs along with those 10 touchdowns and 3 field goals you talked about in an area that sometimes is tough to keep the offensive momentum going. Nevada is tied with Boise State atop the Mountain West in that category.
San Jose State 1-2 on the year. They're coming off the loss in Minneapolis to the Minnesota Golden Gophers 24-7. San Jose State scored 1 touchdown in back-to-back games, a loss at Auburn and a loss at Minnesota. What do they need to do offensively to get more production, but ultimately more points on the scoreboard?
The loss of David Fales to the NFL has the Spartans struggling to find their own consistency. In those 2 games alone, San Jose State turned the ball over 9 times. They also missed 3 field goals that in games of that magnitude and against that quality of an opponent, you just have to make. Those are confidence builders and nothing else. They also missed a field goal in their opening win versus North Dakota. So here's my remedy. First, San Jose State is dead last in the Mountain West rushing on first down. They average only 2.3 per carry. That's 123rd in the nation. Find a way to get Jared Lawson back in rhythm. In 2013, he averaged almost 5 yards per carry on first down, and the majority of his attempts and yards came there as well. Second, amp up the controlled passing attack of play action. Blake Jurich is throwing at 66.7% on second down, and he appears comfortable in getting the ball to his receivers in these scenarios. Again, 8 of Jared Lawson's 20 receptions last season came on second down. Get him involved more. And then finally, place kicker Austin Lopez, normally a reliable asset for the Spartan offense, has got to find his groove. He's 2 of 6 in the field goal department, and he's got to find a way to get himself out of the slump.
San Jose State going to mix things up just a little bit this weekend to try to break that slump. They're going to go with a non-blue helmet for the first time since 1972. Going to go with the gold helmet, gold jerseys, and gold pants in San Jose. That'll be quite the look as they take on the Nevada Wolfpack, looking for a conference opening win at 7:30 Pacific time. CBS Sports Network will have your broadcast. 2 Mountain West teams are idle this week. Utah State and Hawaii will be taking week 5 off before getting back after it for week 6. For Ted Sundquist, I'm Jesse Kurtz. Thanks for logging on to the Mountain West Network and enjoy watching the games.